We live? We're live on all the streams are now currently live. So welcome to the Westsmith Variety Show episode 51. Is that right, Kelly?
Yep, correct.
Yes. With the always special co-host, Kelly Agent 137 Ross.
Hello.
And the reason we skipped 50, we'll come back to that. We're going to do episode 50 later. Kelly and I are going to get together maybe in a few days or early next week and just kind of recap things. So that's what happened to episode 50, in case someone was curious. But
we're doing episode 50 on May 17th, the 137th day of the year. That's why we had to do that.
That's exactly where we're doing it. Anyway, so all with that, awesome guest today. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. A couple of little quick announcements early on. If you, we continue to evolve kind of where we're feeding all the Facebook and the Google Hangouts and whatever. So any questions, just go to Variety ShYo, SHYO.com. Just go there and you can find out probably the answer to all of your bubbling questions about where and why and what we're doing. The longest running official, unofficial sponsor, the music, fun things. Events coming up. I have this weekend, San Diego, May 12th, Saturday, Prism. We had all the or a lot of the folks from the two crews, Monarch and Into Hoodie. We had them on last week to talk about themselves and all their history in music. That was episode 49. Go check it out. There was a lot of fun stuff there. Big shout out West Coast Weekender. That just happened this past weekend. And I was on a panel there talking about all kinds of things with Jim Tremaine from DJ Times magazine. Awesome job there. Go check it out. You can check that out at, you have to go on Facebook. That feed was not from us. So you have to go on Facebook, United by Bass, and check out their videos on Facebook on the United by Bass page. Big San Diego promoter there. And on music releases, Juice Night Out, EP number 3 coming up in May. Young Colin's going to get all that going soon, and so that'll be out in May. Also have a release, had one just come out on Shepherd Records out of Vancouver. That was with Average Gypsy, called I Wish. Go check it out. Thanks for all the support. It charted in Tech House, it charted in Future House, and it charted in Funky Jackin' House. So thank you everybody for that. And I think that's it for releases right now. Also have shows coming up in Florida and Canada, but I can't talk about specifics of those yet. So just, tune in, check it out. All right, on to today. Special guest, and this is sometimes I have longtime friends of mine on that have been 10 years or more. And so her name is Nidhi Misra, and she's going to say that for you better and give you a quick bio of who she is. Go for it, Nidhi.
Hi, Wes. Thanks a lot. Hi, I'm Nidhi Misra, and I'm from India. I hail from the mountainous region, the northern part of India called Uttarakhand. I live in the southern part of India, and I work in Nepal. So you can guess the geographical location. I'm a performer and a teacher. I am an Indian classical dancer. So to brief you, we have got like 7 Indian classical dance, and I do one of the form, which belongs to the southern part of India. And that's all I can say in brief. I'm just a performer and teacher.
So first of all, anybody, there's some people tuned in on Facebook, and then there's the main feed that we do through YouTube. So just for anybody watching either of those or one of the others, you'll notice it's super early, and that is because Nidhi is in India, as she said, and so we had to work out all the time zone things. For anyone that's not aware, that's about a 12-hour time difference. So everybody's this was a good time for us to all get together. But so on that note, and explaining that, I'm going to show one of my usual pictures, and we'll show these things in the show notes and on the website later. for those that can't see it super clear and all that good stuff. But anyway, you get the idea. We're talking about a very traditional style of dancing here, right, Nidhi?
Yes, yes, it is a very traditional format. The Indian classical dance is not just a dance, it actually inculcates, it imbibes everything that's society, the religion, the culture, the socio-economical, political, all the everything, dance is one of the art form, I would say, it gives you the picture of everything. There is music, there is the place that you are in, the culture, or the people that you are with, or for the one who you are performing, or for the one that you are teaching. For example, my teaching experience has been all around India, not to just one particular cadre of children or grown-ups or the professionals. So yes, it's a quite a traditional classical format. It's like in Western country you have classical ballet, right? So India has got like not one classical form, but it has got seven. And the latest update is there is one more in addition. So it becomes 8 classical dance. And each classical dance belongs to the region, to a particular region. So we all have a common base, which is called as Natya Shastra. Like if I'm sure people are a little bit aware of this, of the scriptures that we have got, these 4 major scriptures called Vedas. And the 5th Veda is called as Natya Shastra. So all Indian classical dance are based on that. And then it gets influenced as it belongs to different region, the different part of the country. So for example, the art form that I do is from southern part of India. And you could see from the music format, you could see the body language, everything changes because, the geographical location changes everything. It's like you go to even a small suburb, just maybe an hour away, you will find a different dialect, you will find a different way of speaking, though the fundamental remains the same. So,
Okay.
so that's what the Indian classical dances are about. We mostly speak about the gods and goddesses.
Did a tiny bit of just search around. I'm going to hold this up and see if that's like Wikipedia, but are those like, maybe it's backwards?
Correct.
Are those kind of that you're speaking of?
Yes, correct. Like Bharatanatyam from Tamil Nadu, that's the one that I do, but there are many various other. There is Kathak, there is Odissi, then there is Manipuri, then there is Kuchipuri, then there is Kathakali, then there is Satriya dance. So each one of them, like it's like how in United States you have got different states, right?
Right.
And then you call it United States of America. So just like that, India has got many states.
Right.
And all together, all the states are called India. But then each state has got their own language, their own dialect, their own culture, their own traditions, their own way of doing things. But as a whole chunk, if you see, everyone is more or less talking about the same thing. So all the Indian classical dances are mostly based on the gods and goddesses, like the usual, but it doesn't restrict us to not perform on different subjects. We can, and many dances, they do that. But that's the training format, basically, because dance was not just an entertainment. It was more taken on a very, because see, what becomes important about the art is the person. Art is art, but it is the person who delivers. So it is that person's life, what you experience, what you perceive, apart from the training that you get, apart from the skills that you fine tune, there's a very strict training, there's a very strict format.
One quick second. I want to, 1 quick second. So first of all, just so everybody knows, because we're 14,000 miles apart, occasionally we have a little delay and maybe step on each other a little bit more than normal if you're used to watching this when everyone's in the US. So just bear with us if that happens at all, please. Well, thanks for that. But the other thing was just to point some people, because a lot of the names may just to go Google them or spell them right off may not strike you instantly. So if you want to kind of look at and for people who aren't watching video, if you want to kind of look at some of what she's describing, obviously just in text form, I just went to Wikipedia and Indian classical dance. And that main article that comes up will list those 8 styles that she was speaking of. And then, you know, we're kind of going all over the place as usual, but that's a general guideline to, you know, where she's coming from in terms of the description of that. So yeah, so keep going with the, and just so you know, Nidhi, it may help some people to know, how long have we known each other now? We talked a little earlier, 15 years?
Yeah, 2005 onwards. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Like 13 or 14 years. Yeah, correct.
12 or 13
years. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And real quick, I usually tell people kind of how we met. And so interestingly, that was one of the first times that I had gone to India, and I DJ'd there a few times, and you know, and we kind of met through you know, typical social nightlife, which was really cool. And then before we got started here, we were chatting about how and with Kelly as well, about how interesting it is that, you know, 13 years goes by, and here we are, 14,000 miles and connecting like basically live through social media feeds. So really cool. And I think it's interesting in contrast to also a very traditional dance, but also for you, Nidhi, a lot of people who who connect and listen either on Facebook or YouTube or listen later, they're usually people I know through music in some way, kind of similar, nightlife or DJing or producing music, things like that. And so I think that there'll definitely be some dancers, you know, American or freestyle or whatever. So I'm definitely thinking that you're not, like you said, not just the structure of the 8 dances, but how much more it is than just a dance, going into the artistic and the personal and the regions. Would love to keep talking about that some, because I think that's not something that over here in the US in particular, when I hear people talk about dance, I don't usually hear those aspects tied into the dance part, maybe some spirituality.
Yeah, actually you got it there. It's more to do with the spirituality, you know, it's more to do with your own spirit, what you are convinced about. That's for example, I mean, to be very frank, for me, not a lot of things, but there are some handful things which happened unconsciously. So dance was not a conscious decision for me. I wanted to be a doctor. Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor.
All right.
Yes. And it's just that all I can remember from my childhood, I was always dancing. Okay. And then, you know, there were many stories which piled up as, you know, as you grow up, and I had coping up skills were very bad. I couldn't cope up with my friends, and my mother got very, very, very frustrated. You know, every time I'm coming and crying like a baby, and she's like, okay, go somewhere and learn something. Okay. And I'm like, yes, I want to learn dance. And she's like, but in one condition, you have to learn music as well. So I can sing as well. I have learned Hindustani vocal, Hindustani classical music. Yes, that was like growing up times. And this is how dance has always remained. And since my father was working in a company where we moved all around India, so that makes me also bilingual, which means I know many other Indian languages, regional languages. And along with it, I started learning.
We had a small dropout there. How many languages?
All right. So I am bilingual, which means more than 2 probably, or trilingual, whatever you call it. But I know 1, 2, 3. There are 3 regional languages of India, which I know apart from Hindi, which is a national language. And there are 2 languages which I can read and write. And I cannot speak, but I can read and write. So yes, 5 languages.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm still, yeah. I have, well, some would argue, but I have about 90% English competency. and then maybe about 2% Spanish. So I've got a long way to go.
Oh, gosh.
How did you? So for me, it was a coincidence. Like I told you, my father was working in an oil company, you know, he was a geophysicist. And so whenever he gets transferred to another location, he was like, I'm not going to leave my family behind. And which is good in one way. Yeah, but like in the other way, it didn't work so well for me. That's why my coping skills were too bad, because every time, you know, new school, I have changed 7 schools, man. Can you beat that?
Coping skills. That's not what does that mean? A little bit more. Coping skills.
Coping skills, as in that's how dance happened to me. Like I couldn't get along with my peers. I could not get along with the, when you play outside and in the ground, in the playground, in the society. And, it was very difficult for me. And for me, as now I have become, now as I am at presently, for me, dance is a therapy. I think that was a therapeutic thing for me. I might have been one of those, what do you call it, like attention deficiency, that ADHD. Yeah, exactly. I just felt probably I might have been one of those cases, very sensitive child. But coming back to,
fortunately, you chose dance instead of Ritalin.
They give you Ritalin for that.
Well, like I told you, dance was something like my parents, they say that when you started walking, the only thing you were doing is you were just dancing. You were just jumping. Any music is played. And, those days, India was, I'm like 80 born. So 80s and 90s, I've lived without satellite television, just with the radios on. So they always watched me very carefully. And that, I was always happiest to just, dance for whatever song is being played and to sing. And that's the keen interest. Yeah.
But how did you? So how did you find from a way to, from a natural sort of way to, do something with your energy and alternative to coping skills? How did you find your way to the Indian traditional dance? When did that happen?
All right. So what happened was, I was, like I told you, we kept moving from one state to another state. So folk dance, I'm actually a folk dancer.
Okay.
First. And, when I reached the age 9, 10, my mother got fed up that, I can't get along. That's when she put me into this classical training. So it was she who propitiated, she was the one who initiated the process.
So pretty young.
And
yeah,
quite. That's not young at all. I tell you, in India, there are classical dancers. They start at the age of 3 and 4. So
okay.
Oh yeah.
Kelly,
Just
Kelly, do you, real quick, Nidhi, Kelly, do you have any idea what would be, like, my sister probably did some ballet or something as a kid. So is there a kind of typical age that kind of thing starts in North America?
I think it's very young. Very, very
yes.
young.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, even 3 or 4.
Yeah, because they're competing or moving on to maybe some Broadway show or something like this, probably by the time they're early teens, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting parallel. Okay. Hey, real quick.
Generally the classic.
Real quick, I want to take a second to show just real quick on where exactly. Well, a lot of people know where India is, so I won't belabor that one too long. There's India, but getting into, like, just a little further there. If you go and look, Tamil Nadu is down here in the south. It's this state down here in the south. You can kind of see it rising up there, and so I feel like the weatherman right now with all my touch controls. But right, I'll get a job as a weatherman. Maybe that's what this will all lead to. But anyways, down around this region, and then these different states, of course, have the different roots in the dance. But yeah, we'll keep going with your this history of how you got into this dancing, and then where it kind of became like, there's always a tipping point to where it becomes a career choice, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, even today, I feel like I wish I had some other means of making my living, because, art is something I hesitate so much to ask money to teach, frankly. I know it's very weird. It sounds weird, but then, that's art is like that. It is, you can't bind it with money. Though I do know there are schools, there are posh schools, premier schools where you have to go and you have to pay. Knowledge is like that. But yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know. Like I told you, it was a very unconscious decision. It was a completely unconscious decision. And, the classical training was going on. I was doing my high school and then my 11th and 12th. And finally, you take your science stream and you want to be a doctor. But there I go. I just couldn't pass the entrance exams for medical.
For medical school?
Yeah, so we have to write the entrance exams, the common entrance exam, and that's when the fallout happened. And then I was like, what do I do now? So then I'm like, all right. My father was like, you have mathematics, so why don't you go for engineering? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do engineering. But then I went for it. And then I went for it. And I did 2 semesters, and I asked myself, what the hell am I doing here? I can't understand A or Z of it. And I'm just wasting the money, So that's when I took the call, all right, since what I wanted to be, I cannot. And, today.
Well, so that explains that. But what well, that's interesting, because I don't know what percentage of like I don't know what percentage of any kind of artist, actually ends up paying the bills, with their art of choice or art of gravitation. But quite often people will have multiple things. Artists will have multiple ways they've made money through their career.
Exactly.
They will have different things going on, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. But you've been now, so how long professionally? I guess it would have been more than 10 years now professionally, meaning making money?
Yes, I started earning money. Actually, I started earning money from the age of 13, because I used to perform. I used to go for stage shows. And, that time India was a different India, not today's India. I used to earn like 1,500 rupees, which was like, whoa, a big money in 92, 93 when I was 13-year-old. So I was very active.
When you say it was different, when you say today's India is different than that time, what are some things that are different like that?
The globally, as the world also knows about India, post-satellite time, it has been a quantum leap in India. It has been such a quantum leap. The living style, the cost of living, everything has changed. I mean, there was a time if you have 1,000 rupees with you, that is Indian 1,000 rupee. It's like, wow, you had 1,000 rupees with you, man. And today you go out in India, 1,000 rupees is like $10. It's out. It's like a thin air. It's gone.
That's what the auto drivers try to get from me.
What to do, man? It's so difficult to make your living.
They try to get 1,000 rupees from me. It's funny. So that is one thing that has changed immensely over the time that I've been there. Speaking of this transition, is that when I met you, I would have had to, my friends that were there, they wouldn't let me take an auto by myself, because I had no phone. I couldn't speak clearly. I could speak nothing. The auto drivers, even today, certainly then, almost zero chance of one speaking any English, and really no mapping, right? Maps to the streets and so forth. So fast forward to today, last time I was there was, I don't know, 2012, 13, something like that, 14 maybe. Maybe more recent, 15, whatever. But anyway, it was definitely post-internet, satellite, all this, right? So, so today it's crazy. I can go, I could get an Uber if I wanted, or, I could get to auto. I can have my Google Map, with my live mapping. And at least, and all the addresses are pretty good on those maps now. And so I can at least know if I'm being taken, somewhere bad or whatever the case may be, and even kind of calculate, a little bit of the kilometers or something, so that I have an idea, at least if my friends have told me, hey, it should be this amount for whatever. And I found that culturally, part of why I'm describing that is the transition, but also because what I found was that actually changes the way that the auto drivers, for example, relate to someone like myself, because I just show them right there, and they all know, they know, oh, he knows where he's going, he knows the distance, and so yes, 150 rupees.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, till today, the condition hasn't changed so much. Of course, we have Uber and everything, but don't forget, the Chennai auto guys are still the same.
That's true.
They haven't changed a bit. Yeah. So coming back to professionally, I'm active professionally as a performer and as a teacher for the last 10 years, now 11 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know though that you and maybe this started when you were like 13, 14, but we had talked about in fact one time I think when I came to India, or maybe more than once, and you weren't around because you were touring, dancing. Has it taken you out of India or
Oh,
all
yes,
around
yes,
India?
yes, it has. It has taken me out of India. I've been to Europe. I've been to England.
Ooh, let's
I
talk
have been
about
to Rio.
let's talk about that some. Talk about your the touring.
You want to speak about the trip to England?
Yeah, the England and other places where this traditional dance
Okay, all right. So
is really interesting to me.
yeah, so along with my traditional format as a performer, I also do contemporary work. So when I went to England to perform, that was a contemporary work. That was, uh, you know, uh, not a traditional format. But I have been to Reunion Island. I've been to West Africa for traditional dancing. Of course, it was never by myself alone. It was always either, clubbing it with another dancer or going under the wing of some organization. So yes, I mean, people always welcome. I really don't know. I mean, there is something which it doesn't surprises me, but it actually overwhelms me that everybody loves Indian art. I mean, though they don't understand, but once they watch it, it's something just leaves me speechless because I just don't know, what do they understand of it. But yet, the experience have been amazing. Like in West Africa, it was marvelous. You wouldn't believe. We were in Senegal and we are getting out of the hotel and we get into this bus and we are about to go for a rehearsal check or something. And I can hear Hindi songs playing all around. And Hindi songs from 70s and 60s. I was like, wow, this
Oh,
is cool, man. Yeah.
yeah.
That was like, and they are crazy for, I don't know. I mean, we have this superstar called Amitabh Bachchan,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all his songs are like playing all around. And I just never felt like, it's some strange place, not at all. So my experience have been like whichever country I have been to, they have been like, it's like, yeah, everybody loves this, though they may not know anything about it. But God alone knows what makes them stay back to watch it. Probably because the kind of costumes that we don, we look so alien, or you can say very celestial,
Yeah.
whatever, with that gaudy makeup, on our face and with that costume.
That's your guy, Amitabh Bachchan, right?
Yeah, and his songs were playing all around. You will not believe it. I was like, wow, man, this is fantastic.
He's the man. When I was there, I remember a number of movies, and particularly some of the only ones I could find, that were in English, were with him in them. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Well, I think one of the things, like you mentioned a couple of things about just the different elements that go into dance, a little bit of the spirituality part, but then these other elements, like the regions and all these things that are very tied to it. And I'm curious, like, is there a difference, like the shows that you would do, the performances that you would do within India? There must be a different understanding clearly among the Indian attendees versus, say, if you go to Senegal or to the UK, right?
Exactly.
And what is some of that? Because I think that goes back to the points you were saying in the very beginning of when we were talking. And I'm curious, like, what's the deeper elements that would be the difference in an attendee to a performance?
Well, that's a very good question, but I would like to pinpoint another thing as well. But within India as well, when we perform, it's different region. For example, a song which is being played on a southern language, and if I have to perform in northern India, is completely different, right? For them, the language is alien. But
Okay.
it just becomes, you understand, the language changes. The body language changes, everything changes. But what is it which keeps? So if you want a common answer, whether it is India or abroad or anywhere on this planet, I think that's why they say art is universal, because if I am a dancer, my job is to express through my body. it's like, you land up in Japan. You may not know Japanese, but I'm sure if you have a genuine cause, or if you're open to where you are or with whom you are, you will be able to communicate. Because at the end of the day, nobody is interested in, it's only the connoisseurs, it's only the intellects who sit down, and the critics who will ask you 1,000 questions for this and that. But otherwise, a layman doesn't want anything. For him or her, it's like, wow, I saw something, and it just moves you, and it just makes your day better. That's all. And you forget about it.
No,
But
that's a really interesting point. I mean, that's probably in a more shallow way, like, in my opinion, in a different way. Like when you DJ, it's one of the reasons why I think, well, clearly why this electronic dance music, let's say in terms of over 20 years or whatever, has become so worldly accepted, because it's that same principle, right? Like, there's definitely people, mostly DJs and producers, that go, and as you said, the intellect, of like the dance style you're speaking, but let's say the intellect of the electronic music community, and they will talk a lot about how the person's mixing and the technicalities and the this and that and all these things, and that's a fine conversation. But in contrast, most of the people at 1,000-person event, for dance music, in like electronic dance music kind of stuff, it's that just natural sort of unplanned vibe they get that is the good time.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yes. Yeah, I agree to that.
That's interesting.
So you.
Well, so the other part I was going to ask about that same thing, same kind of line of thought, was like, so it sounds like if you're doing one of the traditional dances that's from the region, then the people of the region, they speak the language, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a different, I guess, the attendees get a little different, in addition maybe to just the feeling, but there must be more meaning to that if you're performing the traditional dance in the area that it's from, the region that it's from.
Yeah, but what, one of the place, again, I can dissect and say that how it could be different being in a foreign country and being in India, in any of the region, though we are different and we are so diverse. Because in India, largely, like I told you, the traditional formats mostly speaks about the gods and goddesses. And see, these gods and goddesses are not just a mere reflection of someone who is on a very higher pedestal. Of course, that's how we are brought up, because something has to be higher than you. But, there is no joy. It's like a toy. The toy is lovely, and you keep the toy there, and you just appreciate, but you never play with the toy. You never experience that toy. So God and goddesses that we speak about, that we sing and dance about, they are very much a part of our life. And that's where that aspect that I was talking about, that is each artist's own life experience, your own perception, how you look at it, what you understand of it. Do you take the literal translations? Do you read the undercurrent? How much are you thirsty to understand that? So, for example, in India, it becomes easy because most of the stories that we narrate or we speak about the gods and goddesses, they're quite familiar with everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but now, for example, on this point, when we go outside India, say to any other culture, not just India, to any other culture, how is it going to ring a bell? That is where I would say the spirituality which counts. Because when you don't just take these gods and goddesses just mere as the higher authorities that are untouchable, unreachable, and they are so pure and like as if they have never done anything wrong, it's not going to make sense to the other person at all. But if that spirituality ring is there, then it will touch anybody. Because at the end of the day, what are we speaking? For example, in our formats, what do I speak about? I either speak about as a heroine where my lover has my beloved who will be either some king or is depicted as the traditional format, I'm saying. Nowadays, people are changing their lyrics and they are changing the context and all. But the traditional format speaks about from the women point of view. And it's very interesting. Most of the poets, they were all men, and they were only talking about the feeling of a woman for a man.
Huh.
You see? How interesting is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's keep going. Let's keep going along those lines. Keep going.
So it's always a heroine who is either she is lamenting about her decision of, rejecting the lover, or the lover has not turned up after promising, or she's preparing herself to meet the lover, or somebody who had promised and hasn't shown up for years and all of a sudden shows up.
Okay.
And then she's like, all the time is gone. Now, what's the point of you and me meeting? So, the context is always in the relationship of a man and a woman.
Okay.
Then also we have these formats, like I told you, since traditional format is based on not.
Let me ask you something real quick. But are there what do you call it? When you dance, most of the pictures. So here's an example, right? So let me show this one, number one, because it's super awesome, and we'll put it on the site later. But this you're solo here. You're by yourself here in this picture. I don't know if that's a performance or if that's for a photo.
A performance. It's a live performance.
Okay, great. Yeah. So most of these pictures that I have from before and recent that you sent, there's either just you, but I don't see men and women, for example, on stage. So how does that come? Like, how does the story of the relationship, these things get in there if it's a single person on stage? Like, what's this kind of?
Yeah, that is the beauty of, one of the thing of the Indian classical format is that you can do duets, you can dance as 3, you can dance as 4 dancers, you can do it in group, you can do it in a big production, and you can also do it as a solo mono act.
Okay.
Which you don't find it in ballet. In ballet, there will be always a main character, but they always work as a production. You understand? So now this thing which you have asked is very interesting. Now I can give you a simple example. Like, for example, when we see mad people, talking to themselves or talking to somebody and seeing somewhere, and when you see an actor on the stage who is imagining, that's what I'm doing. Just because I'm on the stage, I'm not a mad person. But the same act, if I'm doing on the street, I'm a mad person. So at the end of the day, it's not, everything is imagination based. For us, when we go as a soloist, that's why it is very difficult. It is not that easy to be a soloist. It's a journey. Even for me, it's a journey. I haven't achieved it.
Okay.
To visualize. Sometimes we do characters where you are the narrator and you're talking about 2 people. Then sometime you are talking directly to the person, but every time you visualize that person on the stage, like literally the audience feels that you're talking to somebody. So the example that I gave you, like on the street, if you find a guy or somebody talking to someone in the air and you're like, okay, this guy must be crazy. It's like that crazy. But it's more in a format. It is much more where you are aware of what you are doing. You know that you are in an act. That's all I would say. The madman doesn't know he's in the act. He's just mad and he's just crazy.
Right. That's it.
He's just talking.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I have zero formal dance training of any kind in any country in the world, so it's it all makes sense to me. But it's definitely a lot. It's a lot to work to get my head around. I wouldn't look near as awesome as you do. Nobody
was years back.
Yeah, nobody wants to see me in this outfit. Nobody at all. Let me ask you. I want to.
Do you do your own costuming? Do you have somebody do that for you, or?
No, I drape it around by myself, and everything, my jewelry, my makeup, everything I do. Yes, if I have a help, it's always good, but we are always self-efficient enough to do everything by ourselves.
This one's one of my favorites that you sent over recently. It's unclear here, but it's kind of clear. But
Okay, this is from 2015. Yeah.
we'll definitely post the photos, because even if it's more clear, you just can't see, and a lot of people just listen to this, maybe driving or something. But really, really check out the photos, when we post the final show notes later, because the detail in these costuming it's amazing. And here, this is like one close up of your feet.
This is like one of the way of, a posture, you can say.
A posture, yeah. Okay.
Posture.
Yeah, just like the belt and the all of this. So does Kelly asked if you do the costuming, and do you create it? Who creates these costumes? Like actually makes the costume?
We created. There is nothing in it. I just bought some material. I just thought of the colors. I bought the sari. The sari is separate. What I have draped around for the lower body. Okay. And for the upper body, it is just like a 1 meter long or maybe 1.5 meter long cloth. And there is the blouse that I'm wearing, the shirt that I'm wearing, which is a separate material. It's like, because that's how we wear, our saris, the Indian dress.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's all draping around. It's all about making combinations. And your question of how do you get these ideas? See, when you get into training, you learn a lot of things. Sure. First is you get trained. And I studied in a college, which is one of the premier institution, Kalakshetra. And there we not only learn dance, we learn everything of the dance. Because
I have to imagine you learned quite a bit more than we can possibly talk about in our 8 hours of free time here.
Are we going to speak for 8 hours?
As you make this segue, see, this is me. This is as close as I get.
Who is that?
That's my mom.
That's him.
That's your mother?
That's me and my mother.
And that's you?
Yeah.
Wait, put it back up.
Oh my God, put it back again. I want to see it.
That's what's up.
Oh my God. That's such a beautiful picture. When did you click this?
Someone took it of us when I was in India. My mom came over as well.
Wow, you really look like South Indian only, one of those immigrants.
It's definitely South Indian.
Yeah. That looks really good on you. I couldn't recognize you.
Oh, wow.
You look so different. Yeah. I thought that you're showing me some picture just to tell the people, how the South Indians, they dress up.
No, I was getting my cameo in there.
Wow, that's a lovely picture. Wow. Really beautiful.
So back to on the costuming part though, so you were describing like these different, the saris and different elements of them. So that's part of all what you learn through your education and dance and over time and experience.
Yes.
How much I'm curious, like, so you learn all these things, but for example, one of the costumes that we just showed, does every element have some meaning to it, from the fingernails to the jewelry you select? How important is all those different pieces?
Okay, the jewelry has a meaning.
Okay.
So how does the jewelry goes? Like we have something called, we have this terminology called Kundalini.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the Westerners, they know about it quite well, the Indians now. And the Kundalini is a placement of the 7 point. The final point is up here, but then it starts basically from the genital, then it goes up to the navel, then it goes up to your, the stomach region, then it goes to your heart region, then it goes to your neck, then finally to the forehead, and then here. So we wear a bindi. That's why the Indians, they wear a bindi here, This is the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, basically.
Yes.
And then we wear something up here, and then we have a sun and a moon. So basically the right side of the body is sun, and the left side is, which means the right side is the heat and the left side is the cold. So if you see on the top of my head, there are two things, like a round things. Yeah. So they depict the sun and the moon. Yeah. And then we
Zoom
wear,
yeah, I can.
Exactly.
I have to
exactly. And you see that white, you see that white flower up there? Yes, exactly. So this one is a sun, and on the other side is the moon.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And then we wear, for the for this. So here we wear the bindi, and then we have one necklace which is around this neck, this area, and then it goes down near your heart area, and then comes the belt which comes around the stomach, because basically the energy, low waist is a fashion, but if you want to keep up your energy, the energy which is in a particular channel in each person's body, you must tie actually your clothes above your navel. So when we wear the, it's like we always wear it above, because it keeps your energy up. It doesn't allow it to just dissipate.
Okay. I think this is a pretty, of the photos you gave me, this is a pretty good example of at least of the section you're talking about. Yeah, it's a little off, but
exactly. The belt area. Okay. And the bangles, like that's one of the culture that we have, of the bangles and the anklets. And the bells that you see, those bells are very important. They are called as ghungru.
Is there any story, real quick, is there any story behind the bangles and then the ankle bracelets, or?
There is not such any such particular story. It has been a tradition, women, they always wear anklet, they always wear bangles and all that. But, somewhere I had heard from this guy who was doing anthropology, and he told me a very interesting story. He told me that, why we put, if you see, we put a vermin, that red color thing. Have you seen Indians putting it on their head here, where I'm running my finger? Just middle of the head.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it before. Yeah, you don't have it now, but right, yes, I've seen it before.
So it goes like, from the caveman time, when human beings were like one of those not civilized, but, trying to make their ends meet. They used to literally cut the head of the woman, and then the scar will remain. And that's how they used to make their territory, that this woman belongs to us. And the bangles were more like a shackles.
Oh.
Basically, they used to tie them and they used to tie them on the legs. And as they grew, and as they went ahead, I mean, this is something, not my explanation, but somebody that I knew who was doing anthropology, it made a lot of sense to me. And that's how the anklet has come about, and that's how the necklace has come about. It was all shackled, just like you have prisoners.
What about some of these details? Everything's pretty detailed, but what about some of these details, like the red on your fingertips in a few photos? There's this red.
That is to highlight the hand gestures. When we dance, we use our fingers. See, for a dancer, the mouth is zipped, which means you can't talk. So if you can't talk, it's like, the people who are deaf and dumb, then they use sign language. So it's like, we call them mudras, hastas, which means gestures. So every time we want to convey something,
you can really see
this particular. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
So this red color that we put in our hand, which is called as alta. It is to highlight the fingers. See, when you are dancing, you have to think of the people who are going to be sitting very far off. Why do we have such a gaudy makeup? Because when you go on the stage and there are like 200 people sitting, you have to make sure that each 200 means 400 eyes, that they are able to see you, they are able to see your expression, they are able to see your fingers. So these are all highlighting.
That makes total sense. Now we're gonna Kelly, we're gonna have an explosion of ravers with red fingertips. They already wear gloves that have glowing fingertips on them.
I mean, I see Wes, maybe like if he's in a crowd or has 400 eyes on him, people know who Wes is.
Yeah. But
that's your red fingertips right there.
But it's a fair point. It's a fair point though, because of the hat, and it's like, seriously, like this profile, like that profile right there, which is also like my logo and stuff, right? Like, this.
That's why she didn't recognize you in that photo, because you didn't have any of that going on.
Yeah, that's my red fingertips.
Exactly. Yeah. True. That you had that since 2005. I remember. You always had this thing.
Oh,
well, assuming that's just kind of interesting like that, or variations you might do that, are kind of interesting.
Well, the costuming is something, like I told you, the Indian traditional dresses are really interesting because if you go to each region, you will find different way of, the kind of attire they have. It's very interesting. So forget alone about the dance. And that's why I'm saying that for dance is so much, it speaks loud about the culture, the tradition, where it comes from, who used to do it, It's like an echo, it's like a reflection all behind.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that's what
I'm gonna have to ask. I'm gonna have to people dancers at music events are gonna hate me, or maybe they'll like me for it. I'm gonna start asking them all these questions. Yeah,
okay, I lost you there.
Yeah, we lost each other for a second. I was just saying, like, dancers at the shows that I go to, like, the music festival things, I'm going to start asking them all about all the details of their outfits. And some of them will probably look at me like I'm crazy. Others will probably have some answers.
They'll be like, what, you want to know about my costume, not about my dance? Not that how did I dance?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have a couple other curiosities about the dance for sure, but I'm going to take a quick intermission here to look at a few things that are shared experiences, let's say, about India, and you can describe maybe some of this. You may be surprised I even have these. You recognize this?
That's idli, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
A big pot of it, and there is I can't remember. Is that the same?
Is the puri?
Oh, that's the puri. Okay.
That's idli with sambar on it.
I think it's idli with sambar on it. Yeah.
Yes. That's the idli with sambar on it.
What do you know how that's made? I'm always curious how the idli is made. It's rice, right?
It's rice and one kind of a pulse that they use. Two different kind of pulses. And then they soak it in the water, the rice separately, the pulse separately.
Okay.
And then the next morning they just grind it. And then once they have grinded it and they mix it, there is a certain proportion to it. Now, don't ask me the proportion because I don't know that.
I was about to ask if you know how to make it. Have you ever made it yourself?
Well, I did with the instructions. See, I'm not much of a foodie person, so I love food, but I don't take so much of interest in knowing how it is made, and if it is required, I will ask. So I did make it, but with all the instructions, so I don't remember the proportion. And then they allow it to ferment.
Okay.
Once the mixture is done, then they allow it to ferment for a few hours, for a couple of hours or something. And that's it. And then they have these instruments, where they put them like a round thing and then they steam it. Basically, it is all steaming process.
Okay.
By the way, idli doesn't belong to southern India. It has come straight away from Southeast Asia.
Really?
Yes, because was nothing like steaming. There is no steaming food in India, man. Steaming food has come from Southeast Asia.
I was not aware of that, but I
wasn't aware either.
What I am aware of is it's one of the things that is literally impossible to find where I live in Southern California, and very difficult to find in general what would typically be a veg restaurant here in that
okay
way.
Okay.
You may not know this, but here in the States, vegan, vegetarian, there's some variations between them, of course, but in contrast to Tamil Nadu in particular, in my experience, Southern India, here in the US, like, it's a struggle for someone who does not eat meat in any way, to find a restaurant that has all food, a veg, right, restaurant, as they would be called, right? Non-veg is the standard here. So I think some people that watch or listen to this will probably get a good laugh out of that, because if you are a vegetarian here, vegan, etc., it's like it has to be a movement to be able to find, to get like, it would be a very, very special restaurant in most cases that will have no meat of any kind, there at any point, right? I'm not even, there's probably a couple. I'm sure there's one in every city maybe, but nothing like, in contrast, in Tamil Nadu, you have to go hunting around for a non-veg restaurant,
But let me tell you something now is, of course, you live near Anna Nagar, right? If I remember, you're still there?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are quite, if you go to one of these Malayali restaurants instead of Tamilian restaurants and like Chettinad. So I don't know who your friends are there back in India.
Like, I brought this because I thought we'd talk some food. This is that's chicken, right? So that's one of the non-veg dishes that I was easily able to find.
Okay.
If we went to a restaurant that.
No, that's very true. But you have a point there. It's not easy to find a non-veg.
Yeah, the other thing that popped up was non-Indian restaurants, like a barbecue, American barbecue, or a pizza, or these things. And that's a totally different.
We did go to that pizza place, that Bella Ciao.
Oh yeah, so that was a great pizza place, by the way, the Italian thin crust. But my contrast about the veg non-veg is particular to trying to find it. In the early days when I met you, the kind of pre-satellite internet, as we call it, it was hard to find a non-veg restaurant.
Yes, yes.
That was Indian. Would be Northern Indian food, right?
Yeah. But now I must tell you something. It's another movement. Now, actually, the whole world is changing into vegetarian, and now you see more and more Indians who are actually becoming more non-vegetarian.
Yeah. No. So tell us about this one. This is one of my favorite photos of a meal I was eating, there.
Okay. That one is a fish, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. That's like a sapar. You call it sapar in Tamil Nadu, like a meal.
I think it was a Kerala style fish, maybe, or maybe not.
Yes, that looks like a Kerala style.
It's still very common for the banana leaf. Over all the years, that's one thing that hasn't changed. You can still eat on a banana leaf like that. Is there a story behind that?
But there's a scientific reason to it. You know very well that banana doesn't soak anything. Even the water just trickles down.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, try it next time when you see a banana leaf.
Huh.
So whatever you eat.
Yeah, watch out neighbors with banana trees. I'm coming for you.
So that's why the banana leaf is so auspicious, because whatever you put on banana leaf, you are directly having, which means it is not absorbing anything from it.
Oh, so it keeps it. Yeah, and so probably. And
yes.
Of course, you throw it away. Of course, you can throw it away. It's not. It's just organic waste, right? And it's
exactly.
If you use a new one each time, which you would, sanitary, etc. That's pretty cool.
You're making me hungry.
Oh, this is going to be more hungry, Kelly.
Okay.
All right. Is this I think this is samosa, yeah?
Yeah, those are those small, tiny samosa. Tamilian samosas, I call them.
Okay.
They are not North Indian samosa, because in our North, a samosa is like this big.
Oh, is that how you would kind of see the difference is between the size?
Yes. And also the taste changes.
Okay.
Yeah, the ingredients, they change.
Yeah,
you should take Kelly. Kelly should go next time.
I think they do have meat samosas from the north, right? The north is where all of the meat-related dishes come from. Is that right?
No. We don't make meat samosas. We make like paneer samosa. Paneer is like cheese, those white cheese, right. Indian white cheese. Yeah. And then we have these green peas, and potato is the main ingredient for samosa. And samosa is like best to have it with a hot tea. And when it is raining outside, and it is like little chill and pleasant.
Uh-oh, that sounds
the best
like on a boat. Did you know Kelly lives on a boat?
Yeah? You live on a boat?
I do. Yeah, this is it.
She's on the boat. Kelly, I'm just gonna keep making you hungry all day. Look at this one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I can see the smile on her face. She's like so ecstatic about it. Yeah. The dosa. Ah.
Yeah, those are all the things. These are some of the foods. You can tell I missed them. I went and dug up pictures and I missed them. But there was also banana. There was also banana leaf on that plate. And let's see. Here's what else do I have here that may be interesting along the food sides of things? Well, this is I found this to be a very traditional, like kind of juice cart.
Oh yeah, it's not a juice cart; it's a fruit cart.
Fruit cart.
Yeah, but I think this thing over here is a juice maker.
No, that's a weight machine.
Close enough, Wes.
It's a weight machine. Sorry about that, folks.
That's
no wonder all these years I keep walking and asking people for juicers and they don't look right.
They're like, what are you asking here? No juice. No
This is my last nostalgia photo. I don't know if you remember, but this is like my favorite car ever.
Oh, the Ambassador.
Yeah. What's the deal with that? Now, showing this picture. Okay, so if anyone watching or later let's see this, they're gonna be like, hey, wait, that's like a super old, classic car. But it is, but it's also, I think, still made new, right?
I don't think so. It's anymore there. It's not there anymore. It's out.
It's gone. Well, I got that one wrong too, I guess.
Yeah, it's gone now. Oh, come on. Now in India, you get all kind of cars, man. It's not like that 2005 India.
What's before a little more before I get to hear about where you're dancing.
Okay, I lost you.
Yeah,
I lost you.
And the costume. Did we finish with the costumes? Anything else important about the costumes you'd like to share?
Nope. She wants to talk about the dance. Do it.
6-0. Go back to the dance. All right. Off the costume. Costumes were just more interesting to me, I guess. Maybe because did you notice that I wore my special dancing shirt?
Oh my goodness, you did.
My dancing.
Yeah.
That's the only form of dance other than yours that you practice, Nidhi, is hula. I know some about that.
About which dance?
Hula dancing, traditional Hawaiian dancing. And
yeah, the Hawaiian dancing. It's so beautiful, actually. So round.
And I probably shouldn't just refer to it as hula because there's definitely more depth to the different style. This is completely probably inaccurate to after just the surface of, but just the way that Hawaii is an island and the different Asian influences there. The dance is culturally from Asia is my guess in many ways. So there's important parts to the costuming and all this stuff, very specific parts, right? Kind of like you described. So I certainly don't know what they are, but Kelly, we have to find a friend that is a traditional Hawaiian dancer now.
Okay, I'm on it.
Get on it, Agent 137.
I'm on it. I'll write it down.
All right, but back to your dancing and past the costumes. What? So like fast forward to today. It's almost 20 years or more. I guess you've been doing this. And what all are you doing with it today? Teaching, performing, touring? What's going on?
Yeah, presently I'm teaching. That's why I'm here. I have been relocated now from Tamil Nadu to Nepal, and I'm teaching here. And yes, hopefully I will perform as well very soon. So that's what I'm doing. I'm here just for a couple of years. Otherwise, back in Chennai, I do my own private classes. I teach, and I keep my teaching very versatile, which means I not only teach the professionals, but I also teach, like I had these lawyers, doctors, psychologists. Well, my own psychologist was my student at one point.
Right.
That was fantastic. So yeah, I have the bandwidth like from the age of 5 to 62 is what I can tell you.
5 to 6.
And what I find
range.
Yeah, and everyone comes. So like I told you, professional, non-professional, therapeutic as well.
Speaking of that, right. Speaking of that age range, are the traditional 7, 8 styles now. In terms of the performance, is there a particular age range? You know, do you age out of that like a football player here does, you know, or something, or are older dancers looked at as more experienced, or what's kind of anything there?
Yes, that's a very good question that you asked. Actually, see, unlike in ballet you retire by the time you're 35 and 40. You're no more a performer. Means you will be there, but you don't get to, because, you know, they go to that perfection where the body has worn out. Finally, you know, the body, because see, body is body at the end of the day. You also have to allow it to breathe. You also have to, and the body changes. You know, it's not constantly the same, and especially for a woman's body, it is completely different game.
Sure.
The good thing about, one thing that I can tell you, I can vouch on it, because I have got my teachers who is like 82-year-old, he's still dancing. I have a teacher who is 68-year-old, she's still dancing, and they are marvelous.
And
there is no.
Can you tell, like the things we talked about with the energy and these things? Do you feel that comes through, like that? You know, if you're 60 if you're watching dancers, or a dancer that's 60 years old with all this experience, let's say from childhood, like yourself, can you kind of tell, or do you feel there's like this different energy to that because of their?
Yes, definitely. Like to put it very simple way, for example, you know, there is always a grace that a body adapts as it ages, provided the mind doesn't intervene, you know, unless the mind is also tuned with the body. So definitely there is a different way, different energy working, because, you know, the more you become mature, the more you understand your body, the more you know to channelize. You reach a point where you are channelizing your energy. The energy is not more channelizing just by itself. See, that is what happens when we are young. When anybody is young, they can move any which way. They can just do anything. Everything, if you take as a life, you know, you can do everything. But there comes a point, you know, where you literally have to take all the strings in your hand. So that grace definitely comes with the age, because our traditional format has two aspects. The one is the technical. So first they start only with the technique. There is nothing else but only technique. So they just shut down the mind. They don't allow your emotions to talk at all. There is no talking about what you feel or how you don't feel. It's only training the body. And I would say this is one of the reasons why in classical training they take someone at a younger age. This I can tell you with my experience. You know, as you start, after a certain point, it's very hard, because at the end of the day, the body is going to age. You know, the body is not okay. Can be very, very genetically, you know, blessed, where they can still remain hale and healthy, but even they are going to, you know, the body is going to die out at some point, right? But it is the mind, and it is the mind which finally actually can take it ahead, you know. So even when you find people doing certain things at a certain age, it is not the body, it is actually the ability of the mind, because everything is about the mind.
So this
it sounds like it's almost like, to me, what you've been describing, it sounds like the dance is more of a meditation than any.
Sorry?
Is it a meditation? The dance itself, is it a meditation?
Exactly. You got it. It's actually a meditation. It is actually a meditation.
There's that transition from, because one of my thoughts earlier was how, you know, at 13 or 10 years old or whatever, right? Like, how does a 10-year-old brain in any country is not, you know, it's just not thinking the same in terms of depth and experience as 50, 25, 50, 80, like you mentioned to some. So that's why I kept thinking back, like how that almost metamorphosis kind of happens, and that's really interesting you said that. So performers in these traditional dances, are they typically a certain age group? Like, is there a certain age group of the majority of the performers?
Well, you know, generally as a traditional format of the older times, how it used to go is you do the training. The teacher will decide one fine day after many years that, all right, you are ready to go on the stage. And that was called as arangetram. It had a terminology called arangetram, which means starting something. And that is the performance. And then you do a performance in front of your friends, family, and everybody to let them know what you have learned. And it is also simultaneously for the teacher to be known that what the person has been doing. Yeah, both way traffic.
Right.
But as the time has changed, today children are up on the stage very early before they finish their, their traditional trainings, whatever traditional art form they are learning. Everybody is on the stage. Well, the college that I studied, I was on the stage much, much before than I actually learned the technique fully. So the concept has also molded and changed a lot now with the time. The Indian classical dance, Indian classical music is actually on a transition. It's on one kind of a mode where we don't know what it's going to be, but it is changing because the time has changed. The requirement today, like when I get students, the parents are like, okay, when is my child on the stage, my child is going to go on the stage? The first question is that, well, the child has not even started the class.
Interesting.
And that is what is happening to all the reality show. See, in reality show, you see these young ones, they come, they do. See, body is young and it can do so many things.
Yeah.
But to sustain an art, you, like, for example, somebody like Neil Young, he sustained, but an artist like Nirvana who could not sustain. I wonder if Nirvana was alive, how beautiful he would have been, in his music, how much he must have delivered. But it's a crossroad for every artist,
Like
the question becomes of the sustainability as a performer. And that's why I was telling
this age, like Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, I think you're speaking of him, like with his suicide, right? And then well, recently, like in the dance music community, Avicii would be an example, right? And so around the same age, that 27, 28-year-old. That's a really interesting point, the way that you phrase that, though, because more recently when that happened, like Nirvana, Kurt Cobain was sort of pre-internet. So with Avicii, though, for example, definitely, recently and in the middle of all of the social media and everything going on. And then that brought up these discussions about sort of how art and particularly art for money and touring and the pressures of all that kind of stuff, the weights that puts on people. And that's certainly a perspective. But I think I haven't heard anyone really mention your point about, like you were just describing, about how the body just kind of, doing something basically for longevity versus perhaps all this energy that seems to must just stop at a certain age. It's not sustainable, right?
Yeah, I mean, correct. You have worded differently, but it's the same thing. So your question, to which I answered, is that the performance level. Definitely there is a difference when you see somebody who is 25-year-old. There's a difference when somebody is 40-year-old, and there's a difference when somebody is 60-year-old. But at the very same time, it is not even absolute. For example, sometime in your living life, there are people who are much, much level-headed when they're 45 than somebody who will be 60-year-old.
Yeah.
So how do you compare it? So nothing is an absolute, but as how you see it, everything is a process. Nothing happens overnight.
But it also sounds like you could have. But it also sounds like you could have, like, you're not going to have anyone performing ballet with sort of the same level, be older than 35. I may get that number wrong, but let's just say that it's definitely somewhere younger.
That's the bandwidth for them, what I understand, because their form is to that perfection. At the very same time, they demand that much of perfection.
But very, very physical too. Like, I never took ballet, so I didn't learn all the details, and not to trivialize it, but I certainly never heard anyone talk about perhaps these other elements beyond physicality when they were talking about ballet, and that being clearly part of the physical part that to some point comes to an end, because that's a major part of being able to perform the way that people expect it to be performed. It sounds like these traditional dances, there's a place for that longevity throughout, and there's a different appreciation for the changes that go on.
Yes,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to finish, like, there, I told you there are two major aspect of Indian traditional dances. Is that first is the technique, where they only deal with the body. So there will be certain number of steps that you have to finish in a year or 2 year time, and wherein you fine tune your body muscles, your body and everything, your core, everything becomes, fine tune, and finally the balancing act, everything. And then comes the emotional aspect. Now, that is the point where you actually come to know that who is a dancer and who is not, because you can't teach somebody how to smile. You can't teach someone how to cry. Yes, you can teach someone how to stand. You can teach someone how to sit, right? You can teach someone how to run, but you can't teach any soul on this earth that how to cry. Everybody has their own way of emotions, the way they express. Now, that is the refinement which is seen in a dancer eventually, is that, how in the finest way, with the subtlety, and the subtlety is emphasized a lot, which means nothing should be direct. Life is never direct. It's mostly indirectly. It's only when we want to make it direct is where we always find it complex, because it just doesn't make sense then. So the subtleties is what they emphasize a lot. Our lyrics, our poets, they have only spoken about the subtlety.
Okay.
It was so. For example, I'll give you an example. So how do I understand? So there's a complete description. So for example, if I'm going to enact on some particular poem, the emotions. So it's a lot of psychology, which means you have to get into that heroine's mind. And how do I know that heroine? Through the poet who is describing it. And how do I know what the poet is speaking about? That is by knowing the language. And what is the first thing I'll do? I'll do the literal translation. But the poets are not about literal translation. Poets, they speak in 4 lines about the whole life. You can sit and you can write.
That's true. Yeah.
Papers. So you see, so we have this abhinaya, we call it abhinaya. One is nritta. So nritta is completely bodily movement, and abhinaya, which is the expressional aspect, which means where your emotions are at display, which means once you have exhausted your body, only then your emotion will come out. Your emotions are never going to come out, the genuine and the true, what you want to speak, unless you exhaust yourself. So that's the whole idea. The idea is about tuning your body and, bringing your ego down to that level where you just say, like, all right, I surrender, I arrest my case. Now there is no more. And then everything starts coming out. So this abhinaya, this expressional aspect in the traditional format, it will come after performing 3 items for half an hour, which actually have no depth, no meaning, but it is more musical.
So how long? Well, you said three items, half an hour, so hour and a half. How long are these performances?
Well, the old way of performing was 2 to 2.5 hours, but now it has cut down to 1.5 hours. Sometime, we have to finish everything in 1 hour. But our main item, which remains for half an hour non-stop, which means the training is given that you dance for half an hour non-stop.
Okay.
Which means you don't go out of the stage. You remain on the stage for half an hour, and which is a combination of the technical, that is the nritta aspect, that is just purely bodily movement, and the emotional aspect, and the spiritual aspect, everything which you are an element of.
So there's a definite transformation throughout, from the beginning, especially the older 2.5 hour format. There's a definite transformation within a given performance over that evening. Not just speaking lifetime, not just speaking youth to adulthood to older, but really throughout an individual performance as well.
Yes. And for a dancer, see, for us, the body is a vehicle. And before we start the dance, we have a mudra where we do something where we just, we do a salutation before we start to dance, just like, how you wish each other. So there is a ritual to it. So before you start the dance, you have to put your ego down, which means my identity must be lost. My identity remains only as a real fact that I have a body, nothing else. Because you see, otherwise everything is a display of your own inflated ego.
We don't have any, there's no ego here on the Variety Show.
No, I'm not talking about the Variety Show. I'm talking about our performances.
I understand.
So the body becomes a vehicle where, the concept is that your body is a vehicle and you allow what has to be told, what has to be suggested, and the training that we get constantly. That's why the training for the classical dance is very tough. Not everybody can sustain it.
I definitely remember that from when we first met. So what do you do, for example? Yeah. So what do you do? When I went to that, because I forgot to mention earlier, but I went to one of your performances. You remember?
Oh, I remember that stupid performance I did. Oh my God. I forgot everything what I was doing on the stage.
Yeah, I went to one of your performances and with a friend of mine, and we were watching, in the audience, and it just looked really difficult.
Well, yeah. I'm sure that I might have really done a bad job because, the best compliment to a dancer is when the other comes and says, yes, I want to dance the same thing that you are doing. So if I made it look so difficult, I might have been worst.
Right, maybe. So so what do you do? What do you do from this point then in this journey of the next 50 years or whatever, right? Like, what do you do with dance?
What, 50 years? You're asking me next 50 years?
Yeah, why not? Let's go out. Let's just assume we all live to 100 or whatever. And what do you do? What's next? What do you do with the dancing? There's a constant, a never-ending evolution, I assume, as long as you stay interested.
I don't know, man. That's a question I never asked myself because I'm just living today.
Oh, all right.
Frankly, I have no institution. I don't have my institution. I don't want to have my own institution. I don't want to have my own house. I don't want to have anything of my own. I mean, come on, what's the point of it? You keep it and then your disciples are going to come and ruin it. That's all they do.
I had no idea we would arrive at this point during today's show, but I love it. Yeah, it's
yeah.
Nidhi, here in North America, people go live in vans. That's the current thing now. They go live in vans.
Vans and boats.
Vans and boats. But they drive. There's a website. There's a website literally called like vanlife.org or something, and they have meetups. They have meetups on this little island that's kind of inside of a bay here in San Diego where I live. And they have some meetups like once a month. And then, maybe 30, 40 people, I see them all get together. And they're all living out of their vans. It's very popular out here on the West Coast. So it's kind of, maybe you could get yourself a van.
Why do I need a van? I'm sure something will work out. I have a home now. And tomorrow, wherever I will be, I'll have something. But good idea. Maybe I might have that once we have it in India too, the same concept.
A lorry. You could get yourself a lorry. Okay, fine. No van.
No, but
all the raids. These are all the raids. They're coming back.
Oh, the matadors.
The old VW bus. Yeah.
I remember them. Yes. I love them actually.
Yeah, that's what
they look so classy. But coming back to your question of what would I want to do in the next 50 years?
This is real quick before you do my answer. This is right here. This is the one for you.
Wait, we can't.
Okay, all right. You already chose it. Huh? So it means you're gonna gift me one.
It's very possible.
That's what he's saying. Yep.
It's very possible. That's what I'm saying. All right. So 50 years. I don't know.
50 years.
No answer required.
I don't know about 50 years. I don't know about 50 years, but I know that whatever I'm doing, I'm very happy about it.
Great.
And my journey as a professional dancer has not been just like any other because there were certain things I was not giving into.
Okay.
There were certain things I held very strongly that I believed in.
Okay.
And still I believe the way I teach, the way I do the things. But for me, you see, art is something art is not necessary that you necessarily have to become an artist, you know. For example, in South India, everybody knows how to sing. They might be a lawyer, they might be a doctor, they might, because art gives you a discipline, you know. And
Yeah.
if you learn how to discipline yourself, you can learn anything in this world. The
Yeah.
whole world is open to you.
Yeah.
You know, it teaches life skills. It teaches you how to focus.
I agree with
So
that.
if at all I can think of spontaneously, well, I wouldn't say spontaneously. This is something which has been moving me, is that I like to work with children. I like to work with them, especially because, you know, it's hard to get around with an adult. But, you know, whatever you can give into a child, you know, this is what they need. Through art, you know, the discipline, the focus, the ability, that self-worthiness, you know, something that you feel happy about, that you are good at. Because
Yeah, well, I think
unfortunately,
it's awesome that you're doing that, and the perspective is great, and it's working for you. So yeah, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Obviously.
yeah. And the next 50 years fixed plan, I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm gonna become this or that or whatever. Because like I told you, it was never a conscious decision
Yeah.
to be a dancer, and how things have come. And you know me. I mean, we
Yeah.
know. I mean, we don't know so much, but I'm sure that you know me
Yeah.
somewhat. So
Of course, we're not.
things have.
Yeah, I mean, we've hung out enough in person to share some personality and
Yeah,
drive
exactly.
back and forth. So yeah, sure. It's
I mean, I find myself very traditional, but at the very same time, I'm very modern. I mean, I believe in tradition, but that tradition is valid only till the time when it also
I have to
making sense.
process that. Well, I kind
You
of
know,
always thought that. You know, speaking of modern, let me go dig up a modern photo. Hold
oh
on.
my God, which
I'm just gonna surprise you. Um, this is a modern photo. This one's a modern one.
Oh yeah, this is like one of the photographer, you know, he's a friend of mine, and he
Okay.
was starting his career, and he was like, would you mind if I make a catalog? Because you know he had to go to the agencies and show the photographs and his skills. So he requested me, and I just did some sessions with him. You know, this was like way back in 2009 or 10. Yeah, some different kind of photography, but
What
it
is
was time.
yeah. What is going on here? This is a photo you sent, and I'm not sure.
This I made it.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
what is it? What is this?
Painting.
Okay. So this is like we have a festival called Diwali.
Yes, I'm familiar.
You are familiar? The festival of lights.
Yes.
Yes. So during that festival, we decorate our house with flowers, with lamps, and so many things. So I just made something, you know, outside the door of my house.
Oh, nice.
Doesn't have a
That's so pretty.
That's
yeah.
really
It
cool.
doesn't have a particular meaning, but
Okay.
maybe if you want to take it, you know, like how South Indians, they put early morning in front of their house, those white thing. You
Yeah.
remember, Wes?
Flowers all the time. All the time.
Yes. Flowers on their hair.
That's another thing. Kelly. That's another beautiful thing we can kick off is these. I don't know if it's jasmine. What's the particular flower? The one that smells quite nice.
It's not jasmine. I don't know what you call it in English, but in Tamil we call it mallipu.
Okay.
I don't know what you call it in English.
It's a little white flower, quite fragrant. It's very nice.
And it's quite fragrant. But can you believe it? Now we get all the hybrid flowers. They have no fragrance at all, and they are so big.
Yeah. So outside of dancing, this is my next dancing intermission. Here, I'll just start it with this photo. If someone, there you go.
Oh yeah, that is, you know, have you heard about the holiest river called Ganga? She's always on the head of Shiva. That is a glacier. That is a glacier behind. I am 4,000 meter high up from the sea level.
Wow.
Yes, that's my trekking side. I love to trek mountains.
I love it. So if somebody was going to go, my intermission was, if somebody was first time to India, where would you tell someone to try to go visit? Like 3 places, first time to India.
Okay. A tough question right away because India is so beautiful. I can just tell so many names, but if I just have to tell 3,
well,
I would tell
as many as you want.
Okay. Visit Chennai, which is the sea coast. Visit Jodhpur or Jaisalmer, which is near the desert, and visit Uttarakhand or Himachal or Jammu, one of the mountainy places. So you cover the desert, the ocean, and the mountain.
Huh.
Very nice.
Yeah, nice. I don't think, like, I didn't realize, and I've not been to the desert. I've been to the mountain part and the coastal parts, several different ones. But just recently I realized there was really desert there. That I did not think about when I was
We have a huge desert called Thar Desert. It is I think it is one of the very largest desert. It's called Thar, THARR. You can type it in.
Next trip. Well, I'm just going to ask you next time. I may be coming over later in this year, and so as we had talked about a little bit, so I'm just going to make sure I ask you where some of these desert places are, or if you're still in Nepal, maybe I'll get to visit Nepal.
Oh, you should come here. This is such a beautiful place, man.
I haven't been. That's definitely the place I want to go.
I'm keeping the target. Before I move out from this place, I'm doing the base camp for Everest. I'm going to prepare for it.
Yeah. What? Oh, for base camp of Everest, you're going to go.
Hello. Sorry?
Do you know how high that is? How high is that if you do base camp Everest?
It should be around 5,000 meter high, 5,000 at least. Because I have done 4,000 and it was fine for me. See, I was born in the mountain. For me, there is no issue with the lungs, okay? I can breathe in the thin air.
What are you saying? I would probably have a problem with the lungs.
I don't know. Who knows? You may have some.
I live at sea level and run around at sea level all day. That's all I do. So I'm a sea level dweller.
You're a sea level, but you're a marathon runner.
Well, I have run some marathons. I will agree with you on that, and I'm currently training for one. So that's June 3rd. So
how many kilometers?
It's 26.2 miles. It's roughly 50, maybe around 50 kilometers.
Wow.
50 kilometers, roughly. Yeah, it's a good run. It takes a while. So it takes about 4 hours. For me, my time is usually about 4 hours. So I can definitely tell you, I had never thought about it in this way, but maybe it'll help me in my racing some, is that when you were talking about kind of as the physicality and physical side starts to diminish, the mind must take over. And this is in a simplistic way that kind of happens when you run for 4 hours straight, because you have all intentions. Like I would say, like for the first 2 hours, it's fairly habit, like your habit, you have your running style, things feel good, you had a meal before you run, these types of things. And then about midway to 2/3 of the way, your food, your energy is now somewhat depleted. Your muscles are now, tired for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And then you really require your brain to take over and sort of remind yourself what exactly it is that you're doing, and at least for me, by the last few miles, there's no question there's a struggle around 22 to 23 miles. So 26 total miles, but around 22 to 23, they usually call it, a lot of people call it a wall, like a runner's wall. And, and that's where you realize that quite possibly the mind and the body are done.
So do you see a parallel to the conversation here?
Yeah, it's quite possibly just done. But that's my only real experience where I can kind of parallel that, because, well, it's really the only thing I've ever participated in that does require not a lifetime of training per se, but it does require lengthy commitment to training. It's no joke. And then and and you have to be a little bit, maybe some screws loose up here to do that for 4 hours. Maybe
No.
What else?
No, but
sorry.
I do agree with this experience. No, but I do agree. I would like to speak about it. Like we also reach this point, especially while performing, for 1.5 hour. They're always whether 1.5 hour or 1 hour, but that duration, between that,
right.
There comes a point where it's like everything wants to just say like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's like it's over, and that's when you have to just take that one step, somehow ahead, and then you find yourself just running. Then there is nothing which can stop you back. That's my experience.
Well, I can tell you this for sure, which I did not expect out of today, is that I will add that thought from you and your dancing. I will keep those images in my head when I'm running the marathon on June 3rd, because I have to have, like, I'm serious, when I get to that point, like, I really have to focus like really hard on some inspirational item to take to keep the next step, or ignore pain or whatever is going on. So you'll be there with me, at some point during that race, probably the later. Yes. for sure, my friend. Anything else you wanted to, like, you feel, I mean, there's so many things with the dancing, and we'll have to do this again for sure, but anything else today that you wanted to share, dancing or otherwise, just with my friends and people that are listening or watching?
Okay, I can probably share something as my own experience, but nothing that I would like. It's not a preaching, but it is more sharing my own experience.
Sure.
As a dancer, is that like body is it's like what I have realized is the body is such an, see, the only reality that we have, talk about every goddamn thing. You can sit around, you can talk for 10 hours, 12 hours about next life, previous life, this leader, this god, that prophet, everything you can speak about, but the only reality which remains is your body. It's like you have a body. That's a reality.
Yeah.
You can't speak about anything else further from that.
Okay.
And everything, the mind has also such an ability. The mind is amazing. Like, for example, in Hinduism, there is this concept that they constantly keep saying that you have to taper this mind, you have to control this mind. See, there's a difference between control and suppression. Often people confuse themselves with this terminology. When you are controlling, which means with your own consent, understanding, being aware, you are participating in a process where you want a certain thing in your own way, right? Suppression is something where you would like to do it, but you are not doing it just because somebody has told, or somewhere something is written.
Yes.
Okay, I may be going a little abstract, but I'm going to come back to it as body reality.
Please.
But my experience is that so in Hinduism, as much as they say that you control your mind, it also says you must also respect and worship this mind. There is nothing wrong with it, but it is only when the body has reached its saturation point, and the body and the mind, it's the harmony. And they are two different entities. They're completely different entity. Body is one mechanism. The body itself has one mind, which means no matter what heartbreak I have, for one day I will not eat, 2 days, but the third day my stomach is not going to say that I'm going to commit a suicide, but my mind will make an attempt to do that. You see, the body has its own mind, and your mind has its own mind. Okay. And that mind has its own mind. So coming back to my experience is that I think for anybody, if you feel like dancing, or if you feel like participating in any kind of physical form, that is the best way. If you want to get around with your mind, exhaust your physical aspect. And that's what happens. Sometimes people take the other way route, when you indulge yourself more, in your sexual energy rather than more in a creative energy.
Interesting. Wow. I think
So
there's not even anything I can say after that to end the show any better.
No, it's just my experience. So, you know, mind is something which is your foe, and it can be your friend. It can be anything that you want, but the first thing that one has to address is the body. And the body is not to beautify it necessarily, you know. To be a dancer, you know, when I say, but I have gotten this kind of, you know, eyebrows and this kind of expression, oh, you are a dancer, and especially from the males. It's like the first thing clicks, oh, she has a perfect body. You know, for what?
Hey, that's how we met.
But what I mean to say is,
she's awesome.
but I think anybody can start dancing anytime. It is not about being a dancer or being a musician or being a painter. Anything that you love. It is all about channelizing your energy in a certain place where it is creative enough for you to ignite that fuel for which you are looking for, you know, maybe something else. Maybe that's not the thing. So when I teach my student, I'm not looking at one aspiring student who will take my name forward and then this will happen. For me, the biggest achievement is that if that one life can find that happiness, just happiness in it, because when you're happy and you go back to where you were again, you will be able to solve where you were, whatever it is. So dance is an experience for me more in a very therapeutic way, more than entertainment, though it came to me as an entertainment, but it's a therapy for me. I think so. I can't live without it. So it's not a question of me being a professional dancer, remaining that or not, the commitment to it. I'm not taking a back step. But this is something which I wanted to share with everybody that, you know, realize your body, not to beautify it, not to always look, you know, what you read in the magazine, what you see on the TV, but this is one art form, dance, which can make you feel. So whatever art form you take in dance, it doesn't matter.
Yes. Kelly, dare you follow up to that?
No, I completely agree. I'm definitely not a professional dancer by any means, but it is very cathartic to go out and to, you know, just lose yourself for at least a couple hours. I think that it's not people, like, I'm sure that's the same with running or whatever. A lot of people don't do a lot of things with their body very much anymore. Like there's a lot of this, you know, sitting in a chair, and I think people are really losing themselves a lot because they don't do any kind of exercise. There's not, you know, you're not putting your feet on the ground in any way, shape, or form except for sitting in a chair or, you know, like laying in a bed and sleeping, really. So.
Well, your purpose may not have been to enlighten, but I think it really does. And even for me, I really, now I'm hooked on this. We'll have to hang out again, obviously, hopefully in person, but again, do this because for me, I really just never thought about running, for example, or whatever physical things I do. I never really thought about those in the context of depleting my physicality and then having to develop or in fact maybe not even being able to fully develop the mind side of what I'm doing until I'm more, if not completely, exhausted. I've heard that from people as I've paid attention a bit more to people and talking like to you or taking that was a beautiful description or just I don't know, conversation.
Don't you think that even maybe when they say hitting the wall, like that maybe it's not hitting the wall? Isn't that where your mind just takes over when you're running and you get your second?
Well, sure, very possible. But just in the context of today, like I think it's taken a conversation perhaps like this, oddly over 14,000 miles, for me to hear a very different description of that physical and mental relationship, because you don't, at least for me, I don't hear it talked about that way. If you go to like a running camp or whatever it is you're doing, like I just don't hear it phrased that way. So that's why I have no extra words for that.
You can try it out seriously. And also see, it's like, the body, what is dance? Dance is nothing where the body, the physicality, the mind, and the emotion and the spirit, everything is like binded together, and everything is like a ball and moving together. Nobody's fighting with each other. It's like a complete, see, harmony, we always try to imagine everything will be same, 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 same. It's not like that.
Right.
Nothing is like same, 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 You just don't know how the graph is going to be. Our heartbeat is not like line is you're dead.
Yes, that is true. That is definitely true.
Exactly. So it has to be felt, so the feeling is the foremost.
Yeah.
The feeling is the foremost, which I did not speak much about, because generally people feel a lot, but they act less, they think less.
Yeah.
But the feeling always remains the predominating factor. That's where you tend to become so emotional sometimes that you forget the reality which exists around you. And this is something which dance has done to me. I mean, it's very hard for me to explain it in a better word or dissect it more further, but that's a simple way I can say the harmony of, but the body is the first thing, because the only reality is this body. See, if they say that you die and the soul will not die, all right, all well said and done. And there might be 1,000 souls, roaming around me and roaming around you, but they don't have a body. There's no reality. And the reality is only your body.
Yeah.
What else is your reality? And how you take care of it. So, for example, in India, we worship body as a temple.
Yeah.
What do you do in a temple is the same thing what you do with your body.
Well, I will tell you one thing I'm going to do with my body is along these lines is I'm going to, before I see you the next time in person, I'm just now getting into just for some stretching and whatnot into yoga. So I'm just now starting that journey. So we'll see how that goes over the next 50 years.
So when you were talking about Kundalini before, isn't that also a type of yoga?
You asking me?
Yeah, the Kundalini yoga, is that the same thing that you were talking about before?
Well, probably. I mean, that's how, if you feel it, probably it is that, but that's not where my precursor was at. But it's all that, it's all the energy that you channelize in your body.
Mm-hmm. Agent 137, we have to find a yoga person.
Well, Bebe was the one, he was talking about that particular type of yoga when he was on the Variety Show earlier.
Right.
No, but if you go for yoga, just go for normal yoga, because I know that in US there are all kind of yogas. There are power yoga, there is this yoga, there is that yoga. It's like the yogas that we don't know about,
Exactly. So I'm going for normal, as you say. I have a good friend who's very, very. She's been maybe 20 years or something into and explaining the same thing you were just saying to me. So I think she's more in line with what you're saying. So I think I have some good guidance. We'll when we see each other again in person, we'll share that story.
Okay, that would be wonderful. And I'm so sorry, Kelly. I did not speak to you much at all. It was all me and Wes who were talking all this while, yapping away.
I'm usually very talkative, but I don't usually talk much on the show. It's okay.
She's
really?
She's doing cameras. Yeah, she's doing cameras and comments and Twitter and Facebook and these things.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay. So
that we can have so that we can not have to worry about that stuff. That's
okay. All right. That's like a lot of work you're doing, Kelly.
Well, I'm also listening, but this has been very enlightening.
Her job is tough. We're gonna Kelly, are you going to Burning Man this year?
Maybe? I don't know yet.
Well, if we do, I know we've got at least 10 hours worth of road trip for conversation topics now, as if we wouldn't anyway. Well, Nidhi, that's fantastic. It's been awesome just catching up with you for one thing, because we've had some Facebook chats and some inner back and forth, but nothing like this. It's almost like sitting a tad in your living room or dorm or wherever you are, and
it's my living room. Yeah, that's my living room. Yes, exactly.
It's amazing, and it's one of the things that's been so amazing about just doing this type of podcast.
One thing I want to tell you is, So I'm here, but these are some greeting cards that my students, they wrote for me, which I would just like to put on the camera if I can.
Yeah.
Can you see them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go. We had to drop
Yeah.
Aww.
Can you see them?
Yes.
No?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So these are all my students. So, it's like they are there in the living room. They are my energy.
Yeah.
So for me, performer is one thing. I guess we all are performer in our own life.
Yeah.
But there is no joy when you nurture, when you nurture another life, however you do it, whether it's your own child or whether you work for another child or however it is,
Yeah.
That's one of the things which gives me a lot of happiness.
How long are you in Nepal? How long are you in Nepal still? How much longer?
I'm here for 2 years. I just moved in, man. It's only a couple of months.
Oh man. So I have to okay. Great. India. So I'll make sure I talk to you, and I'll have to in a great way. I'll have to plan to come to Nepal. That would be awesome because I've never been. So
yeah. Do that. That would be nice.
You're more excited now. That's awesome. Well, cool. Let's.
If you ever think of coming towards this side, you're most welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we'll wrap up. Let's wrap up, Kelly. We'll wrap up the show. That was awesome. I think awesome note to end on. Hey, everybody, stay classy, yo. We'll wrap up the show, and again, Nidhi, you can stay on here. We'll chat for a little bit once we're off, and fantastic. So I appreciate everybody checking it out, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
very special show today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wes. It was lovely. Thank you, people.
Thank you. Stay classy.